It started with rain, the kind that doesn't just fall, but slams into the road like it's mad at something, the kind that makes your headlights feel weak and your thoughts louder. And I remember thinking that night how funny it was that weather can make people feel powerful, because that storm made one man believe he could do whatever he wanted, and it almost got me buried by a system that was never built to protect people who look like me. I was driving home after one of the proudest nights of my life, watching my daughter walk across a stage, white coat over her arm, smiling like the world was finally opening up for her, and all I wanted was quiet, a warm meal, my own bed, you know what I mean? Just normal things, nothing flashy, nothing reckless. Just a man heading home in the rain, hands steady on the wheel speed a little under the limit, because I learned a long time ago that small towns don't forgive mistakes they decide to see. Then the lights hit me, red and blue, exploding in my mirror, bouncing off wet asphalt like fireworks. And I didn't panic, I didn't swear, I didn't do anything dramatic, because I've been black in America for almost 6 decades, and you learn early that drama gets you hurt. So I signaled, eased onto the shoulder, shut the engine off, rolled the window down, even though the rain was coming in sideways, and put my hands where they could be seen, high open, calm, like I was showing the universe I wasn't a threat. I sat there listening to the rain hammer the roof, waiting, and when the officer walked up, I could feel it before he spoke. That tone, that weight, that thing in the air that says, this isn't about the law, this is about you. He didn't say hello, didn't ask how my night was, just shined his flashlight straight into my mirror like he wanted to blind me, and barked for my license and registration, and I answered the way I always do. Polite, clear, letting him know every move before I made it. Because that's how you survive these moments, and I could tell it annoyed him, because some people don't want calm, they want fear. They want you small. When he laughed at my answer about coming from my daughter's graduation, I felt that familiar burn in my chest. Not anger exactly, more like exhaustion, like here we go again. And when he told me to step out of the vehicle, I asked why, because I hadn't done anything wrong. And that's when he said it. The line I've heard too many times in too many places. I smell weed, and yeah, that happened just like that. No hesitation, no shame. I knew right then this wasn't going to be quick. I stepped out anyway, because arguing on the side of a dark road with a man who already decided who you are is a losing game. And when I stood up, I saw him flinch just a little, because confidence looks different when you're not used to seeing it on someone you think you outrank. He ordered me to put my hands on the hood, and I did, rain soaking through my shirt, cold water running down my back, and I told him who I was. Not to brag, not to threaten, just as a fact. Because context matters, or at least it should. And I said my ID was in the wallet he was holding, and for half a second I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd slow down. But ego is a hell of a drug, and he tossed my wallet onto the wet hood like it was trash, and called it fake right there in front of his rookie partner, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the rain. When he found my legally carried firearm, everything snapped. His voice went up. His movements got sloppy, and suddenly I was the danger he needed me to be to justify what he'd already started. I stayed still, explained calmly. Permit, reciprocity, everything by the book, but he wasn't listening anymore. He was performing. Yelling commands for the camera, shoving me, striking the back of my knee with his baton when I didn't drop into the mud fast enough for his liking, twisting my arm behind my back until the cuffs bit into old injuries I'd carried for years. I didn't fight back. Not because I couldn't, but because I wanted to live. Because I knew that if I gave him even one excuse, the story would end with a headline that started with "Officer feared for his life." They shoved me into the back of the cruiser, and as the door slammed shut, I caught the rookie's eyes through the glass. She looked sick, like she knew exactly what was happening and felt powerless to stop it. And I remember thinking how dangerous that kind of silence is, how many people get crushed under it. I leaned my head back against the cage, listening to the radio chatter, feeling the ache in my shoulder. And I wasn't thinking about lawyers or press conferences or revenge. I was thinking about one phone call, because sometimes survival isn't about strength, it's about access. At the station, the air smelled like old coffee and floor cleaner, and the night sergeant took one look at me and his posture changed, because some people recognize bearing when they see it, and when he checked my ID, really checked it. I watched the color drain from his face. The cuffs came off fast after that, and I didn't say "I told you so," because this wasn't about ego for me, it was about accountability. I asked for my phone. He hesitated, then handed it over, and I dialed a number I knew by heart, a number you don't call unless things are already bad. That call changed the temperature of the room. You could feel it like pressure dropping before a storm breaks. I spoke plainly, professionally, laid out the facts the way I'd done 1,000 times in other contexts. And when I hung up, I looked at the sergeant and told him to secure every camera file in the building right now because things have a way of disappearing when people get scared. He listened, and that decision probably saved his career. The officer came back not long after, smug as ever, talking about pills he planned to figure out later, until he saw me standing there uncuffed, and the confusion on his face almost would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. Before he could start shouting, the front door opened, and the chief rushed in, half-dressed, panic written all over him. He tried to smooth it over, tried to make it small. Said we could drop the charges, return my car, pretend none of this happened. And I looked at him and said no, because that's how this keeps happening. That's how people like him stay protected, while people like me get buried. I told him I wanted it processed fully, paper trail and all, and while he was still trying to decide which side of history he wanted to stand on, the sound came, engines rolling up outside, deep and deliberate, and just like that the power in the room shifted. Black SUVs, federal agents, military policemen who didn't need to shout to be heard. Jurisdiction changed. Tone changed. The officer who arrested me found himself in cuffs in his own station, repeating the same words he'd mocked hours earlier, "I'm not resisting." And yeah, that happened too. Over the next weeks, the truth came out piece by piece. The footage, the words, the attempted planting of evidence. The group chat where they joked about stops like hunting trips, about seizing cash like it was prize money. It wasn't just one bad night or one bad cop. It was a system that had gotten comfortable hurting people who didn't have the means to push back. Watching those videos felt like watching someone else's life, like I was standing outside my own body, seeing how close I came to losing everything because someone wanted to feel big in the rain. Months later, sitting in a federal courtroom, I watched that same officer look smaller than I'd ever seen him. The badge gone, the swagger evaporated, and when he finally lost control and shouted that I needed to learn respect, the room went dead quiet because everyone heard what he really meant. It was never about safety. It was never about the law. It was about power, about punishing someone he decided didn't deserve to have it. I didn't smile when the verdict came down. This wasn't a victory lap. It was heavy because the truth is I won, because I had resources, connections, a phone number memorized, and that's not justice, that's luck, layered on top of privilege, earned through a lifetime of service. There are hundreds of people who pass through stations like that every year who don't get that call, who don't get believed, who don't get to tell their story in a room where it matters. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. Was what happened to me justice, or was it just the system panicking because it grabbed the wrong person this time? Was the punishment fair? Too harsh? Not enough? And more importantly, how many stories like mine end very differently because the person in the back of the cruiser didn't have a name anyone cared about? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you've seen, what you've lived, whether you think the system fixes itself or only reacts when it gets caught. I really want to hear it.